For the majority of my life, I've struggled with my relationship with food. This is a really painful challenge to have when you're an overweight teenager just trying to fit in, or if you're an adult who wants to make a good impression on his children, help them form healthy habits. Lately, I've been starting to develop a positive relationship with food. One could even call it a good relationship with food. This is new to me. This has not been how I've lived my life for 30 years. I've yo-yo dieted, restricted my calorie intake, ran rampant in a sea of Doritos and Oreos. I've gone back and forth in weight, struggled with body image issues as a result. And today I just want to open the discussion to everybody and share with you my recent experiences in this world, and hopefully that might make an impact on somebody out there. So, what has changed for me recently? Well, over the last year and a half, going on 2 years now, I've been developing my running. I ran in high school, and then didn't run for about 15 years in between high school and the last 2 years. Some of that time I was doing some physical activity, like going to the gym, lifting. I got pretty strong for a while. Always carried a reasonable high amount of body fat and was never really satisfied with my body, nor was I satisfied with my eating habits themselves. So today I wanted to break down really like what changed for me the last couple of weeks, months, and some lessons that I've learned along the way. Before we do that, we got to define what even is a good relationship with food. And that's going to look different for everybody. For somebody that's on the really low side of eating, like they don't eat very much, they're not very hungry, but they would like to get larger, stronger, or they would simply like to eat more to be at a healthy, normal weight. Or if they're on the other end of the spectrum where they eat way too much food and are overweight as a result of it, or they're not happy with what type of food they're eating, they want to cut out sugar or whatever. Just today, like talking about what does it mean to have a healthy relationship with food? Really, it means, to me, relating to food in a way where food supports your values and your goals. Almost you have a higher power that you're accountable to, not in a religious way unless you so choose to think of it that way, but for me, a way where I want to run a faster marathon. In order to do that, I need to have less pounds of body fat on my body, right? There's a ton of different ways that you could shave time off your marathon. But if you're carrying excess body fat, that's completely useless to the goal of running faster, and in fact is quite literally dragging you down. So this is my experience, sort of what I'm sharing with you. That's not going to be true for everybody. If you're watching this in a running context and you have any body fat, this might be extra applicable to you. So what are some of the lessons that I've learned recently? Well, that's the first one, really, and that's the biggest one, is having a higher power that holds you accountable to eating towards that goal, right? So the higher goal, the higher power that I'm holding myself accountable towards is having a better time in the marathon. For somebody that is perhaps underweight, and there's a metric, I can't remember it off the top of my head, for people that are underweight, that they have a deficiency in some sort of chemical. Maybe somebody in the comments can let me know what that is. Maybe their goal is to get that up to a normal level. Or for somebody that's really obese and has struggled with that for their entire life, maybe it's to simply not feel compelled to eat that whole thing, whatever that whole thing is for them that's triggering. Or maybe their goal is bigger than that, or different than that, and they want to lose 100 pounds or something maybe less ambitious. Maybe they want to lose 20 pounds over the course of a year, right? But whatever your goal is, eating to support that goal. That is what a healthy relationship with food looks like. And having it be something meaningful to you often helps. So because I yo-yoed back and forth in my weight my whole life, I was treating the weight loss as the end, right, in and of itself. But I was never really chasing anything other than an end to being overweight. And once you attain that goal, then you feel like you're done, or at least I did, right? And this is a long time ago in my past, but that never resolved my issues with food. It never resolved the fact that I felt compelled to eat and eat and eat and eat until there is no food left, and then get dessert, right? So what are some ways that you can address this relationship to food? So first, I think is to practice mindfulness. Right? You're going to hear this one a lot across anywhere you're going to hear advice about eating, but being mindful of the food that you're consuming. There are monks that, and forgive me, I don't know where I read this in a book a while ago, but they'll chew their food 100 times per bite. They'll chew their bread like 100 times per bite. And it's to stay with the flavor, to stay with the sensation, the texture, the experience of the food, right? And cherish it and be mindful of the fact that they're nourishing themselves. So that's one way. I mean, in societal terms, you don't have to, chew your food 100 times. That's a lot, right, for the average person. But one way you could be more mindful of eating is not eating in front of a TV or your phone. You could eat with other people, or for a time being, if you want to build really healthy practices, eat just by yourself, sitting. Sounds strange, 2025, but it might be helpful. So another way I found that actually had the largest impact on me as a tactic, right, that you could use to avoid making bad decisions is to stay out of the center of the grocery store. This is a very simple one. I saw this in a comment on Reddit a couple of months ago. I would love to give the person credit for this because it literally blew my mind. But I don't know where that thread is. So when you think about the layout of an American grocery store, it's fruits and vegetables along the edge. Sometimes they're in the center, but in their own section in the center. But most of the time, so along the outside, you get your fruits and vegetables. You get a deli counter with nice sliced meat. You get a butcher's counter with, your thicker cuts, maybe a little fridge with pre-prepared thicker cuts of meat, some cheeses a little bit further along the edge. You also get the rest of your dairies in a cooler there, your milk and your cheese and so on and so forth. And that's all along the edge of the grocery store and culminating in the freezer section, which some parts of that you might want to avoid. Some parts might be okay. There's frozen berries there. Sure. Right. But in the center of the grocery store, all you have is a minefield of carefully designed, extremely addictive products that scream for your attention. There are cameras in all of the grocery stores. All of the grocery stores are owned by like 5 companies in America, and they're watching your pattern. They're not watching you maybe specifically, but they're collecting data, seeing how people behave, how people interact with the shelves. This is just the reality we live in. If, you haven't observed a grocery store before, you're being observed in a grocery store. And these products are designed to be immensely purchasable, and then once you eat them, the things that are in them, like Oreos are addictive. They are designed to be addictive. They're the cigarettes of the modern age. I will eat Oreos still, right? That's, I think, it's sort of a side tangent of this discussion, right? This is a tactic to avoid eating Oreos, but also you don't want to necessarily exclude Oreos from your life entirely if they bring you joy sometimes. You can eat Oreos. You can do it. You need to know what your boundaries are around food. You need to set good boundaries around food and not rely on restriction or refusal of certain things that do bring you happiness occasionally, right? And so this is something that isn't easy, and you really shouldn't be eating Oreos more than a couple of times per year. And you get to decide for yourself what level of ambition and how aggressive you're going to take this journey towards a healthier lifestyle. I know there are some people that really eat a clean diet, like an extremely clean diet. And there are people that eat only processed foods and really unhealthy max sugar, max garbage food, right? Like chips and dip and full-blown cake for dinner. That's their dinner, right? So there's the reality for most people is you're going to end up somewhere in between, and what's healthy for most people is probably somewhere in between, because not every person in the world is built to live this like extreme diet lifestyle, and that's where you need to find what works for you and what you're going to be able to sustain, right, and maintain, and what is going to support your overall goal, what's going to support your the thing that's driving you forward, right? So for me, again, that was my higher power was to have a faster marathon time. Like that's aligning me towards eating healthy, because I care more now about running a faster marathon than I care about eating Oreos, right? So tangent over, center of the grocery store, it's a trap, don't go there. And it's easier to avoid things than to decide not to have them. So if I have Oreos in the house, I'm going to eat Oreos. They're right there. If the Oreos are at the store and I have a craving for that, or chocolate, or chips and dip, like I'll eat pita chips and hummus. I mean, that's not the worst thing in the world for you, but the pita chips, like you eat enough of them, it's not that good. And then Doritos, even worse than that. So or even chips and guac, right? Avocados are good, but chips and guac, I tend to overconsume on it, right? And so some things that might even be ostensibly healthy, like guacamole, I mean, it has good fats in it, and it's a vegetable, sort of. I mean, it is a vegetable, but it's a really calorically dense vegetable, right? Sometimes you could overindulge, even if it is a relatively healthy food, like corn chips and guac. And so, but that's all stuff that's in the center of the grocery store. Just steering clear of that, not bringing it into your home, and only it opens the door for you to intentionally choose those things if you want to go travel to the store and get those things on a separate trip. Then by all means, like you're making a really decidedly intentional and effortful action to go get that type of food and bring it into your home. Then for me, at least in my current phase of this journey, I have no problem with that, right? And so that's mindfulness and staying out of the center of the grocery store, and thinking about what you need to succeed in your goal, and purchasing only that type of food. This sort of goes along hand in hand with staying outside of the center of the grocery store. But for me, right, I used to lift a bunch of weights and was into the gym going lifestyle. What was healthier for me at the time, and it's going to the gym, lifting weights, for me was not actually all that healthy of a lifestyle. I mean, better than sedentary for sure, but it revolved around a lot of like black market pre-workouts and consuming a lot of food and not really doing any cardio, which leaves you not exactly fit, but sort of just strong, which is not, if that's your thing, that's awesome. You could do that. But for me, I was stocking the food primarily with, at the time, dairy products like primarily milk, but also a ton of cheeses, and protein powder, because you need to, if you want to gain weight in the way that you're lifting at the gym, and you need a certain amount of protein, like a pound of protein per body weight ish. That's hard to do without protein powder, realistic or unrealistic. It's just not realistic to get all of your protein in from natural foods. Of course, it would be better too, and that would be actually eating a diet that supports your goals, right? But I would stock a lot of that. I would also stock a lot of red meat, because steak is tastier than chicken, and it's not better for you than chicken. It's much worse for you than chicken. But I would be eating, that's what I would be eating in those situations. It was supportive of my goals at the time. So therefore, if my goals were my higher power, and if lifting was what I took to the very extreme, and I wanted specific goals out of that, then eating in that way would actually have been the healthy, or maybe not healthy is the right word, but it would be a good relationship with food, because it would be supporting my goals, and it would be in accordance with my higher power, right, for that specific thing. So stay out of the center of the grocery store, yes, and get at the grocery store the food that is going to support your goals, right? So for me right now, that's a lot of veggies, a lot of pastas and rices. I'll do a lot more bread than I used to. Bread is one of those things for me that I could very easily overindulge on. So I do tend to avoid it a little bit more than I would, rice or pasta, because I don't tend to overindulge as heavily on those. So knowing yourself is a huge part of this, because some people might be the total opposite. Some people might just love pasta, and that's all they want to eat all the time. And maybe that's the triggering or offending food for you. And so keeping that in the house might be hard. For me, that's similar to bread, but I'm not going to restrict myself from bread. I'll have bagels on the weekend, right? Maybe I get back from a long run on Saturday or Sunday, and instead of going right home, if I'm out at Run Club or something, I'll go get a bagel instead of going home and eating something at home. So that's a perfect segue into the next tactic that you could use to improve your relationship with food. And this is a really important one: learning how to cook. All right, you definitely have somebody either in your family or in your general surrounding that is good or competent enough at cooking that can teach you. If you don't have somebody in your life that can teach you how to cook, I'm sorry, that really is terrible. Go to YouTube. It would be so much better if you could learn from somebody, because then you get the social rewards of hanging out with somebody and learning their cuisine. People love that. People love sharing their food. But you can always learn anything. You are empowered to learn absolutely anything. It is 2025, One way I use AI is I have, if I'm really fried and I really want something sweet, but I don't want to go anywhere, and this is not necessarily a good relationship with food, but it's not necessarily a bad one either. I will ask GPT to give me a recipe using just the stuff that I have. And it's hilarious. I'll have brown sugar and peanut butter and no other things, and it'll give me some recommendations for what to make, right? But this is when I would probably 90% of the time, 99% of the time, if I had Oreos in the house at that particular moment when I'm really not trying to go anywhere to get something sweet, but I also really want something sweet, I would definitely just eat the Oreos. But if I want something sweet and I really don't have the ingredients to make it, even if the brilliant ingenuity of the culmination of years of technological advances culminating in AI development, where you could have a computer recommend you the most delicious desserts out of literal debris that you have in your house, even if that sounds good to me, I might still not make it because it's effortful. So learning how to cook and knowing what it takes to acquire and what ingredients go into a dessert, or if you're making something savory, if savory is your favorite thing and you really want to eat snacks of some sort, right? Like the same principle. It's a lot harder to make something than to just rely on eating prepackaged cakes and Oreos and candy and chocolate, right? So learning how to cook will open up options to you. It'll open up the knowledge of how to make really humble ingredients taste fantastic. Getting to know your seasonings will blow your mind with the creativity. It helps with creativity. It helps with, if you wanted to have people over and feed them, it helps with, there are so many benefits to learning how to cook your life. It'll be cheaper too than ordering food out every day. I know it's easy to order food, right? And I'll get food from restaurants sometimes, but it's not reliable. Knowing the macros of your food, knowing that you're feeding yourself and that you're putting the ingredients into your body that you've pre-selected at the grocery store that will be good, it's, it all has this cascading effect where if you do those things, if you stay out of the center of the grocery store, buy food that supports your goals and cook that food yourself, you have agency throughout that entire process, not some mega corporation that owns bajillions of gallons of corn syrup and wants to pour it down your throat, right? So those are all some tactics that really serve the main thesis or point of this video. Is you need to have a higher power if you want to have any chance of enacting this. And again, I don't mean a God. I mean a purpose that you are driven towards, that you have set yourself, a goal in life, something that you want to accomplish, that the food you eat plays a role in. And it's not just about weight. It's not just about losing weight or gaining it. It could be about cognition. Like I said before, it could also be about your setting a good example for your family, or building a community too. If you wanted to make friends, maybe taking a cooking class and, sharing your culture, right? Or your own like creative mind with other people, that's supportive of those goals. Food could be such a positive force, and it could be really hard too to eat healthy. We live in a world that really is out to get us in the food sense. And I don't want to say that and make this all sound paranoid, and I don't think that any one party is to blame for our food supply being so critically unhealthy in America. But it is true. We live in a pretty unhealthy nation. We have pretty unhealthy food that we rely on to eat every day. And forgive yourself for making bad decisions sometimes. It's not easy to always eat healthy. It just isn't. But if you have a goal that you're working towards, a higher power, a higher purpose at play, you stand such a good chance at succeeding. So do some self-reflection, think about it. Hopefully these words are helpful to you, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.